you for joining us today. My name is John Milner, and I'm Chair of the Historic Preservation Commission. Typical of HP, we have a full agenda, and it's always our goal, I'm sorry for the echo, it's our goal to get everyone out of here early today. As a reminder, please limit individual conversations during the meeting. This ensures commission members and applicants can hear one another. Please remain quiet until you are called upon. When you speak at the podium, please state your name and address for our records. Before the commission votes on each item, I will ask if any members of the public wish to speak. Speakers are given 3 minutes to relay information to commission members. Please be thorough, but also mindful of your time. The agenda and documents for today's meeting are located on the PrimeGov site. If you're following along online, select Agenda on the right side of the Historic Preservation Commission meeting to see items being discussed. Written comments received more than 24 hours before today's meeting are posted online and were shared with commission members. At this point, new materials may not be shared with the commission. So if you brought handouts, examples with you, please keep them at your seat as we cannot accept them and review. I repeat, we cannot accept new information in today's meeting that was not submitted previously. Okay, Keith or Mark, would you please call roll for us today?
Milner.
Present.
Gaines.
Present.
McBride.
Present.
Poor.
Present.
Whitley.
Present.
Wood. Present. We have quorum.
Okay, thank you. Procedures for today's meeting are noted in the agenda. For anyone unfamiliar with the process, please refer to the procedures section. There are 2 items we would like to note specifically regarding this meeting process. These items involve certificates of appropriateness and appeals. Certificates of appropriateness: after an application is approved and the 10-day protest period expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the certificate of appropriateness to the applicant. City construction permits cannot be issued until the CA is issued. Please contact HP staff for final design review inspection or to withdraw items that will not be completed. Appeal to Board of Adjustments: any person aggrieved by a decision granting or denying a certificate of appropriateness may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustments. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the commission decision by filing a written notice of appeal with clerk of the Board of Adjustments. Katie, any news from the Office of Historic Preservation?
The only thing I did want to mention, just to make people aware, is that we have a number of kind of educational opportunities coming up in the next several months. We've got a lunch and learn workshop that's planned that will be, the commission already, I think, has received word of it, but we'll be making that available to neighborhood representatives, and then to the extent that we have available seating to other interested neighbors. We are going to be hosting our first hands-on wood window repair workshop in quite some time. We haven't done one since COVID. That'll be in September. We have a commission assistance and mentoring program training planned for the commission, and we'll open that up as seats are available to other folks as well. So just keep an eye on these agendas and on the website and on your email, and certainly reach out to staff if any of those pique your interest specifically and you want to be made aware of those. But yeah, that's all for me.
Thanks, Katie. Acceptance of minutes is next. Commissioners, have commissioners had a chance to review the minutes from the June 5th meeting? If so, do we have any questions or a motion to accept or modify? I think we've already got a motion by Commissioner Gaines. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a second by Commissioner Poore. Everybody else, cast your votes. Okay, minutes were approved. Next up, Katie, anything from code enforcement?
We do have a dilapidated structure on a little further down on your agenda. Otherwise, nothing in particular to report. As always, if you see items in that code enforcement report that you want more information about, or if you see something that you think should be there and it isn't, reach out to staff or reach out to the Action Center for more information.
Okay, any continuance announcements and requests?
No continuance requests on the agenda, and no new requests have come in since the agenda was published.
Okay, it appears we do have one item in public hearings, dilapidated structure. First item, C24-39181 at 827 Northwest 17th Street.
Yes, this is in Mestet Park, Ward 6. This is a request to receive Historic Preservation Commission comments regarding the accessory structure in the process of being declared dilapidated by the City of Oklahoma City Code Enforcement. pertaining to its contribution to the historic integrity of the historic district and the effect of the proposed demolition on the historic character of the property and district. This is an accessory building where construction was initiated without the proper CAs and permits quite some time ago. It has stood in an unfinished condition for some time and is now being processed as a dilapidated structure due to the ongoing issues with its condition. So to back up, when we review a dilapidated structure, we are not being asked to comment upon its condition. We are not being asked to review any possible proposed work to it or ways to remedy the situation. We are only being asked to comment for council's consideration upon whether or not it's historic and whether or not it contributes to the historic character of the district. Because this is clearly not a historic structure, we have recommended comments to the council to that effect, that it's not a historic building and it does not contribute to the historic character of Mesta Park.
Okay, Katie, thank you. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? I don't believe we do. Commissioners, do we have any questions?
I'll make a motion to make the recommendations as staff listed in the staff report with
I'll
those
second that.
comments. Yep.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All of the commissioners, please cast your votes. Okay, that motion is carried. Next item up. Katie, anything on National Register nominations?
No National Register nominations this month.
Okay, it does appear we've got 3 items on the consent docket.
Yes, 3 items that required commission review, but that appear to meet all applicable guidelines. Staff didn't identify any issues, so we've recommended approval of those items as proposed and have them on the consent docket.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners, or do we have any motions to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve items on the consent docket.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Commissioners, please cast your vote. Okay. If you're on the consent docket, congratulations, your project is approved. You have the option to stick around for the remainder of the meeting or head out. Next up, we've got cases for individual consideration, and I believe we've got 9. So let's get started. Item 1, HPCA-24-00016 at 3118 North Hudson Avenue. Katie, what can you tell us about this project?
This is in Edgemere Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Nicole Ragland for a certificate of appropriateness to 3, revise item 1, replace front lawn, to include an increase in the amount of flagstone proposed in the front yard required. This is an application that the commission heard previously, the full application, and approved the proposed work to the front lawn with the condition that a more detailed site plan be submitted to staff for inclusion in the CA. When staff received the more detailed site plan, we determined that it was not consistent with what had been presented to the commission at the initial hearing and wanted it to come back before you as a revision to the application. Specifically, the concern was that it is showing quite a bit more flagstone and flagstone in a more defined configuration that creates kind of a sidewalk down all the way from the front of the house to the street and kind of a flagstone patio type area along the front of the house, whereas the previous site plan appeared to indicate more just kind of stepping stones intermingled amongst the landscaping at the site. The applicant has indicated that this is all permeable. It's not being set in concrete or mortared in any way, that permeable materials and plant materials will be able to grow up and move in between the flagstone, but because it was not consistent with what you all saw the first time, we wanted that to come back before you all.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Is the applicant present? Please step forward and please state your name and address.
Hi there, Nicole Ragland, 3118 North Hudson Avenue.
Okay, and tell us about your project.
So I was here a few months ago, and it was drawn out basically, and you guys basically said everything looks fine other than the initial garden bed, which was at 21 inches, and understandably, based on the packet, everything has to be under 18 inches. So I lowered that garden bed to 18 inches, and then yeah, the pathway is not permanent. There's basically clover that's being put down in between, and it was just a drawing basically before. And what I want to have happen is to make the pathway. It's a walkway that would go around to the other side, is what I'm proposing. So yeah.
Okay. Commissioners, what questions do you have? Appears there are none.
So, well, I'm just trying to go back to what we were presented with last time.
Yeah, Katie, is the drawn,
Yes.
is that the original one?
When we scroll to it.
Is
There's
that
like
what we saw last time?
there's like kind of a color.
Yeah, so there's just a drawing, if you remember, I don't know if you remember. but there was
Hand-drawn.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
I hired an architect essentially to draw out a clear plan of the walkway, which is what I sent over and is what you have there. Yeah, and so, I mean, as you can tell, hopefully by that initial picture, the majority of it is clean growing space with native grasses and succulents and clean food and pollinator plants. And then, like I said, the walkway is just flagstone that's not permanent with clover put down in between. So again, if this is ever sold, it's a very easy thing to uproot and make lawn again if somebody else so chooses. So nothing of which is permanent.
Yeah,
There's cement in between the rocks of the garden bed, but that's basically it.
I mean, I don't have a problem with this. I mean, it's not really too different from what was submitted as the drawing. You know, I think you could interpret where you had shown the path as like, are those just big individual stones, or is that just like the area where there's going to be flagstone? So I mean, it's not that different. It doesn't bother me. It's not permanent. It's permeable. I think it fits in with what was already approved. So I'm happy to still approve this.
I think I'm comfortable as well. I mean, one of the findings is to an alternative to turf may include water permeable paths of pea gravel. You start going down pea gravel, what type of depth, what kind of compaction, is it really permeable? I mean, it just all is, there's a lot of, things that may determine whether it's truly permeable. But I mean, this doesn't have, it's soil in between, so I
Yeah,
do feel,
If we're growing clover,
yeah.
say she is growing clover in between, then I think that's even a better alternative than just crushed granite or what have you. So
Everything that is growing is essentially replenishing the soil as well as the watershed. And like I mentioned before, while I'm here, I want to take full advantage to share an opportunity for you guys to use the conservation districts as well as the Conservation Commission. That's who I work for. And we're in the process of building model ordinances, not only for you all, but essentially for the entire state to understand conservation practices and implementing them in individual residencies as well as commercial. This is super important for people to be educated on the importance of uprooting lawns and conservation practices. Yeah.
I have one question I was curious about. You said that one of the intents is to kind of get the lawn out and get more plants that are pollinators or whatever. So I'm just curious on why you would want to increase the flagstone area and not have more plants in there instead of having covered area.
Well, like I said, I mean, they're pretty spread out. There's between 2 inches and 4 inches in between the stone, of which will be clover. So even just that is more beneficial than lawn, because clover essentially helps in terms of soil amendment. So even just that amount of clover is going to help, say, if I just turn that entire flagstone into just lawn. So the combination of all the diversity in the plants that I put in the lawn as well as in the garden bed and then the front bed is 10 times more diverse in terms of building soil amendment, as well as water retention. You're absorbing significantly more water, whereas turf and lawns, you're getting significant runoff, and the majority of lawns within the state are chemically induced, so all that runoff is going into our streams and dogs' mouths and all that. So, yeah, and just aesthetic too.
Okay.
Not to spend money on more plants, but a little bit more rock.
In your experience, what happens to the clover in the wintertime?
That's a good question. I've never grown this much clover, but I mean, in comparison to grass, that it stays significantly longer. And given climate change, and we're dealing with 60-degree winters, they're going to do pretty well. Yeah.
I think clover is beautiful, so I've been kind of following this trend. But I am curious what it looks like in the wintertime, if there's another layer of some material, plant material that survives through the winter, and the clover, you know, you reseed it and it comes back. But
Yeah. A lot of times too is just putting mulch on top just to cover, essentially, if we have a horrible winter and freeze and that kind of thing. So just to protect the soil. So yeah. Commissioners?
yeah.
What's that?
We'll drive by in February.
Great.
So the one item, I think that's the most specific concern to staff, that if we approve as proposed, I would ask the commission to include a finding or a unique circumstance to address, is that the portion of the pavers that extend all the way down to the curb and into the right-of-way, we do have specific guidelines that say which I would interpret that as a sidewalk. I think that looks pretty clearly like a sidewalk. And the guidelines are very clear about sidewalks being concrete unless there's historic precedent for another material at the site. So I would ask that either, if, you know, maybe the portion that goes past the planting bed be eliminated so that it's more just up within the yard and doesn't read as a sidewalk, or that if the sidewalk remains, that we have a finding or a unique circumstance to justify why, in this case, either that's appropriate or we don't think it's a sidewalk because we get lots of requests for sidewalks made of things other than concrete. And we have been very consistent in telling people this is what the guidelines say, it has to be concrete. So if we're going to approve something that could be interpreted as veering away from that standard, I just want us to go on record as to why.
I have a question for Katie. So on this picture, it looks like the house directly to the south. It's page 2 of the handout. It looks like they have kind of a similar, but not quite as filled in, or maybe not as geometrically symmetrical. It appears that they have a flagstone kind of pathway leading down there. Yeah. Is it just the density and the fact that it roughly approximates a sidewalk that differentiates that from the house to the south?
I would have to check if that one went through any sort of review, because it, to be honest, may not have. We typically don't get into review of just landscape materials and that sort of thing, so that may or may not be something that got a formal approval. I think it is rectangular. I mean, it's well defined. It's got, you know, a clear, straight, perpendicular to the street pathway all the way from the house down to the curb, that it reads more as a true sidewalk,
So
in my opinion.
what can you dictate what is a sidewalk? I mean, what if you approve a concrete sidewalk, why wouldn't a flagstone walkway be approved with clover in between?
It's just about the historic consistency and the historic character of the district, that are typically throughout the districts, the sidewalks, the walkways from either a driveway or from the front steps of the house to the street or to the public sidewalk or concrete. We see quite a bit of uniformity in that throughout the neighborhood and from block to block. We don't see a mixture of different materials. So that's just one characteristic that is consistent throughout the neighborhoods that the guidelines say should be maintained.
I mean, could you argue, since the flagstone is spaced far enough apart that she's growing planting material in between, that it's more of a landscape feature and not a sidewalk?
I think you could say that.
Okay,
I have a question.
great.
On this, and I wasn't here last time, but I'm looking at this, and I say absolutely no on the Flagstone sidewalk. I think it looks horrible. I think it's not consistent with the district. But my question is had she come in, looking at the picture before and seeing that there is no sidewalk from the street to the front of the home and wanted to put a concrete sidewalk in, is that something staff would have recommended be passed?
When we look at applications for new sidewalks, we tend to look at what's the pattern on that block. We know in some of our neighborhoods, everyone has a very uniform, they're all evenly spaced, straight sidewalk perpendicular to the street right up to the front steps. We know in some neighborhoods, people have a sidewalk that curves out and around and connects to the driveway. Different configurations like that. So our evaluation of a request just to put in a sidewalk would have been to look at what the condition is on the block, to look at if there's anything that suggests, you know, what sidewalk, if any, might have been there historically. And then generally, if there is no sidewalk, no access from the house to the street or to a public sidewalk, we're going to support just a typical straight concrete sidewalk.
And I would say that in my time as a commissioner, I've been against that because I think telling somebody that they can't have accessibility to their front door and they're forced to use a driveway to access their door where cars are parked, it's just not something I'm comfortable with. So I have made unique circumstances for sidewalks in situations where they haven't existed on the block. So I'm just saying that from my perspective because I think telling somebody that they cannot have a sidewalk to their front door because it doesn't exist currently on the block and telling them they have to use a driveway where people park and if you're in a wheelchair, if you're like, that's not a solution in my mind. So, but I'm not saying, I'm just answering your question, Gary. Like,
Well, and what I would say to that is I live in a historic district. I have a driveway and I have no sidewalk from the road to the front door. And I make it work. How do I do that? We use our whole driveway. We pull to the back. We choose not to park in the street because we think it's a safety hazard in our neighborhood for the people that have 3 cars and park all 3 in the street rather than pulling in their driveway. So I look at it that these are homes and these are sidewalks and things that were built long ago. You know when you buy the house, this is what you have. I don't even see, I can't tell if you can even access the front door from this front opening. It looks to me like with the plantings that the access that they use to go to the front door, not in this picture, but the next one over, is going to be from the side. I guess there are, let's see, try to get the full front porch. But see, now we have all these plantings in front, so they've actually cut off their entrance from anywhere but from the driveway.
That's not the case at all, sir. So there's a walkway, 2 steps from the driveway walking in, as well as so the larger green pine plant that's like directly in back of the garden bed. There's 4 stones that walk onto the porch.
I'd have to make a motion to continue on this because I can't tell what's going on. There's too much flagstone in this front yard. There should not be a sidewalk that's set off way past. It should be a straight shot if you're going to do one, and it needs to be concrete. That's it. So my vote would be to continue this so that we can have a better view of all this. But even at that, I would never vote for what's going on here.
So I would first ask, are there any comments from the public? And then my recommendation was going to be to ask her what if she could make an argument for a unique circumstance as to why this is appropriate abutting to Hudson, the street, and try to tell us why that's needed. So,
Do we have any members of the public that would wish to speak on this item? If so, you can come to the podium. I don't
We
believe
did
do.
receive a comment on this one, I thought, but I don't see it. Let me. But you all may,
It's not on our prem pass.
yeah, let me see. We received a comment from Edgemere Park, July 1st. The Edgemere Park Historic, and I'm sorry, this didn't get forwarded on to you. The Edgemere Park Historic Preservation Commission Review Committee met on June 30th, 2024, and is submitting comments related to application HPCA 24-00016 at 3118 North Hudson. The application was originally approved for removal of a lawn and installation of rock, gravel, boulders, and drought-tolerant native wildflowers and grasses at the March meeting, along with flagstone that indicated as a narrow, irregular, and loose path through the expanses of plant material. However, the site plan submitted for approval requests flagstones at the largest concentration at 9 feet wide by 12 feet wide, and the path of stones continues south in front of the house approximately 2.3 feet wide and north along the front of the house at approximately 5 to 6 feet wide. This request consists of a great dimension of flagstone, creating a private right-of-way and what could be constituted as a patio. As the staff report identifies, and we agree, the site plan illustrates large swaths of flagstone area in the front yard where visible from the public rights-of-way and is not consistent with the historic landscape character of the site or district. Furthermore, the Commission points out, private sidewalks and driveways must be constructed of concrete except where historical precedent demonstrates the previous existence of brick, stone, or other materials, which may be considered appropriate for replacement. Here, the applicant is clearly creating a sidewalk from flagstone, which are not in compliance with historic preservation requirements. We urge the Commission to enforce the requirements related to patios and public rights-of-way, whereby the applicant is required to ensure sidewalks must be concrete and patios and other landscape features are to remain inside and backyards to where not visible from public rights-of-way. Approval of the site plan as is sets a precedent of non-compliance with previously established requirements and would be inconsistent with the historic landscape character of the site. Thank you for your consideration, Andrea Monacella. I'm sorry, I saw that come in and I did not get that into your packet in time to distribute it to everyone.
And those were comments from the neighborhood?
From the Edgemere Park
Okay.
Neighborhood Review Committee.
Okay. And Commissioner Poore, I'm sorry, would you pose your second part of your question? Was it to us or the applicant?
so I mean, my question, Katie was saying, what would be the unique circumstance that would allow us to make the argument that it not be a traditional sidewalk concrete from door to curb? Like, why? What is your unique circumstance?
Climate change, full stop. Climate change, magnetizing of pollinators, replenishing the watershed, building soil health, cost. Concrete sidewalk is 10 times more than flagstone. Again, putting in clover in between the stone is, again, significantly better than concrete. Concrete is extremely detrimental to the environment. I mean, there's 8,000 reasons why. Aesthetic, every single person that walks by is proud of it. How'd you do this? Who's helping you do this? Can you help me? We have an entire program for the state called Yard by Yard, which implements conservation practices for individuals as well as commercial properties. I mean, it's just, it's what we're supposed to be doing. It's truly what we're supposed to be doing. And it's, quite honestly, extremely elitist to think that I have the money to put in a concrete sidewalk. That's easily $4,000. Flagstone costs
I'm not saying put in a concrete sidewalk. I'm saying don't put in a sidewalk at all, is what I'm saying.
Okay, this takes work. This takes an hour of work every single morning to essentially replenish the soil and to build out pollinator plants and to grow clean food. So walking out there is, it's my job, my family's job to be part of, nourishing that. So one is aesthetic. It's clearly not your aesthetic. It's my aesthetic, and I think it's beautiful. Many people think it's beautiful. And when I walk out there, I want to be able to walk to harvest my food.
I actually like it. but I don't like it in a historic neighborhood. That's the problem, is we're dealing with rules here that
I understand that,
Guidelines.
sir. I totally understand that. But 100 years ago, we were growing food in our front yard.
you can grow food in your backyard.
And I'm doing that too. And in a state and a country where food is now 40% higher at grocery stores, we all should have the capability, as well as like celebratory experience in every single council, to be growing clean food in our front yard, as well as have a healthy clover-filled stone walkway to take care of that food.
Why is the one area of the walkway so wide as described by the neighborhood where it appears that it's going to be used
I
as a
don't know,
patio
because in
area?
comparison, quite honestly, I mean, full between the porch and all the plants that are growing, which is about 2.5 feet to where that stone is. So those little shrubs, and then all the way across is all plantings. And then from the front is 45 inches across, and then on the driveway is 45 inches across. It gets a little bit thicker behind the garden bed, but again, 45 inches across and around. So in total, percentage-wise, 70% of the lawn are plants. Succulents, native grasses, food, and pollinator plants.
I do think it's important to distinguish between the pollinators, the native grasses, and all the soil replenishing installations that you've done, and what appears to actually be the issue, which is the massing of this particular flagstone path improvement. And so my question is, would you have the capability or the willingness to shave, if we could come up with a percentage in width that could be decreased? But the flagstone path as a feature that you could walk on, I mean, 48 inches is sidewalk width. I don't think it's ADA. I think it'd have to be 5 feet for that. But you're coming up on 4 feet is a pretty significant massing just for the possibility of having access to that area. Would it be possible to reduce that massing and maybe accommodate the concerns of the neighborhood, as well as more effectively reflect the drawing that we approved in March?
Yeah, I mean, as it is, if you can see, if you go back to the front picture, I mean, I basically stopped. So as it is, it's 45 inches. So the front of the pathway, that's 45 inches. It wraps around the garden bed, and then, like I said, goes to the back of the front end of the plantings and then to the side of the driveway. So, I mean, if we can leave it as is, if that's a happy medium, I mean, I'll take what I can get, but quite honestly, what I just wanted to do, and essentially one, for aesthetics reasons, and again, not to put in more plants, is just to wrap around the side. But if we can leave it as is, I mean, then we're talking about still 85% of the front lawn are plantings.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I actually didn't even realize that part of the plan was to extend further than the photos that we're seeing right now, so I must have missed that.
So in
should we stop mid-process?
Yeah, and I essentially would just put in plantings or Bermuda grass in the remaining corner. If we can meet somewhere in the middle.
There is a section within our guidelines that talks about sustainability, and I mean, with our homes being over 100 years old, I mean, it is the body of sustainability when we're talking about homes that have been in existence and continue to contribute. So, I mean, I 100% hear your argument and am in support. I do think it would be a good middle ground, perhaps, if we do kind of thin it down. It does, yeah, like this looks very nice and accessible, but I like Molly, I didn't understand that it's supposed to be wider than that.
That's what I was proposing, is to just wrap it around, which is another 45 inches in width, and to wrap around the side of the house. Not all the way back, but it just goes back another like 3 feet around that bush to the left, that hydrangea bush.
Well, and to be perfectly honest, the comments from the neighborhood kind of caused me to just kind of dig a little deeper in these photos. And I don't know if it's the angle or whatever, but the part that's closest to the house, is that wider than the part that is at the,
Yes.
not wider north-south, obviously it's wider north-south, but if you were walking it as a pathway, You know, is it wider north-south than it is east-west where it intersects with the curb?
Yeah, so it's that 45 inches goes around to the bed, and then the 45 comes in, and then yes, there's about 4 feet. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not
medium.
a lot of
Nice
space.
attachment.
If you
So
look at
maybe
the-
if like,
All right, there we go.
yeah, if the part that hasn't been built yet, if, you know, say that stayed the same width as what's already built on the east side, maybe that could be a happy medium, because you wouldn't be undoing work that's been done. And yeah, I know that you'd probably have to buy a little more planting, but if that helps people get more comfortable with the amount of flagstone.
Well, I just say that I think we're creating a horrible precedent here by allowing a flagstone sidewalk to be built from the street up to the home, and it's not even a direct shot sidewalk, which is what we see in these neighborhoods. We don't see meandering. It's not even over near the door. It's far to the one side of the door, goes around the planter, and then comes back to the house. That's not what you see. You don't see it in Heritage Hills. You don't see it in Edgemere Park. You don't see it in any of the historical neighborhoods. And personally, we do it for her, we're going to have to start doing it for everyone, and then we're going to have a neighborhood with a bunch of flagstone sidewalks all through it.
That doesn't bother me, frankly, but
It
I mean,
bothers me horribly. It's not what I want in my neighborhood. And I know that neighbors down the street had to rip their flagstone out on 40th Street because they had put it in, and it wasn't even one that was as unsightly as this is. It just doesn't fit the character of the neighborhood. I'm fine with the plants. I want you to do the plants. But the sidewalk made out of flagstone and this massive amount of flagstone here that is proposed is just unacceptable. It's unacceptable, and it's not necessary. The flagstone is not necessary.
Sir, there's multiple residences, one next door, of which you see in this photo essay, which is predominantly 80% stone. There's one
I'm not
around the
worried about
corner
that.
from-
That's not the one before me right now.
There's multiple homes in my neighborhood in Edgemere Park where there's stone involved, meandering, different. I mean, this is a very creative, significantly more flagstone yard that is in front of next to my house. There's ones around the corner.
I would have voted no. I wasn't on the board. Maybe when that came before, we heard from staff that she didn't even know if that came before the board. I would have voted no on that. The flagstone cannot happen in these neighborhoods, in my opinion. It's not elitist. I'm not asking you to go pay for a concrete sidewalk. I take offense in you making that comment to me. What I'm saying is there wasn't a sidewalk there to begin with. There shouldn't be a sidewalk now. I don't see any other sidewalks from the street in. And when Ms. Poore asked you to give a reason, safety and not having to walk down your driveway was not one of the reasons you gave. So I'm saying no to this. We cannot start doing this in our neighborhoods. Cannot.
I think this is a lot of conversation for something that is not permanent and can be easily taken out.
I'm going to ask commissioners if we've got anybody that would like to move forward with a motion on this. We've been on this item for about half hour, so any commissioners want to make a motion on this item?
Let me ask you a
None?
question real quick. If we could go back to the site plan or one of the images, would you be willing to remove the connection from that raised planter, like the front of the raised planter, to Hudson and take that portion of the flagstone out?
Or perhaps even kind of thin it down so that it doesn't read like a sidewalk.
Yeah,
Like stepping
that's
stones
easy,
or
and I
something
can
more
do it
so?
when I get home in 20 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah,
pick it up and move it, yeah.
okay.
So take that part out and leave the rest like it is right now and not increase
Yeah, if that's our happy medium. I mean, ideally, like I said, we'd love to go around, but clearly there's a lot of concern
I mean,
about
yeah,
that.
maybe instead of like the super tight flagstone path, they could even be more like stepping stones or something, kind of
But it
more what it
reads
looks
as
like
that
in your
yeah.
drawn site plans. That way, it doesn't look as much like a sidewalk, but you still have that connection to the street. Something hard to walk on that's not permeable surface.
Yeah, and I mean, this whole experience has made this really nebulous. Like, what determines a sidewalk? What determines a stepping stone way?
I
What
agree.
determines a sustainable decision-making process within a front lawn? This is what is so frustrating.
Yeah.
And this
get
is
it.
what, I mean, I'd like to again go higher and work with the agency that I work with and the Conservation Commission to again implement these practices so that it's in the document. Like, how do we create sustainable pathways and plantings and consideration of cost for each individual lawn? So,
And I would say, I mean, I would request that you continue this conversation with staff and us during workshops. I mean, we can always relook at guidelines, make adjustments, with feedback and input from the neighborhoods. So this isn't the end all of this opportunity to continue advocating. So that's just one thing I wanted to put out there.
Thank you, Commissioner Poore. Okay, so knowing what the homeowner is willing to do on this plan, do we have a motion that we can put forward, Commissioner?
Katie, is that something she can get with staff on?
So would it be a motion to continue with working with staff or a motion to
Approve with conditions?
approve with alterations?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll-
I'm sorry, which one?
Sorry, it would be to approve with condition that the revisions as discussed at the commission, changing that front sidewalk to more of a stepping stone configuration with more spacing between the stones be submitted to staff.
I think the original recommendation was to remove it from the bathtub forward to the street. Correct?
yeah, that's what
You
we
were
just
in agreement?
finished.
You were in agreement to remove it from?
Yeah, just to alter just that front way that may feel like a sidewalk and to
Yeah, I
remove
think-
some of those stones so that it doesn't look like a sidewalk in a very nebulous description. I mean, yeah, we can do
Well,
that.
that's what I'm asking. Do we have to take away the nebulous description, which means take them all out? Or can you work with staff to remove enough so that it doesn't look like a sidewalk?
Yeah, which would you prefer?
What's that?
So which would you prefer, taking it all out or still having like a little bit of
Like-
further space down?
Okay, sorry, to be clear, so taking out part of the front of that sidewalk area, right? Which is the happy medium? And we can be in agreement on that? Is that?
My statement was to take it out from that flower bed to the street. You said that's a nebulous description, and I said, taking it all out's not. So that is my recommendation, is to take it out from the front, because like you just said, if you take out one stone, does that make it not look like a sidewalk? I don't think that's true. So,
Yes, I can take out that front area.
okay,
We could give
then
it a
that's my
maximum
motion.
width.
That is my motion.
Okay.
Okay, so we've got, thank you. So we've got a motion, and
HPCA-24-00016 to approve the continuation of item 3,
To
the
approve, not to
revision of
conti-
item
yeah,
1.
to approve.
With the recommendation that that part is removed and that it's not continued as proposed, and to work with staff.
Question. Are you, just want to make sure, if she works with staff and puts in a stone here and a stone here and a stone here all the way to the curb, and it's more of a stepping stone, kind of irregular, is that what you're comfortable with, or are you saying you want it totally?
I'll leave that to staff. I think we understand.
Okay.
okay, we've got a motion.
And wait, I just want to make sure, and is your motion to keep the width as existing in the back portion of what you're calling the bathtub
Yeah, just to
Or-
not do any further
further?
installment.
Everything the same, just removing the
Okay,
front.
okay,
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
That's my motion.
Okay,
Thank you. Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Commissioners, please vote.
Answer your vote, please.
How about yes, it's up, but it doesn't have the button.
Okay, that item is approved with conditions. Okay, thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have HPCA-24-0045 at 601 Northwest 21st Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Christy Miller for Daniel Daniels for certificate of appropriateness to 1, install retaining wall and infill elective, and 2, install fence elective. This application was heard by the commission, I believe, 2 months ago, and continued with the request that they provide some additional information. The applicant has come back with some new information. They've indicated that, concerns with this proposed project, or that they were indicating, or that they are indicating a retaining wall and fence sitting right at the edge of the sidewalk, which is outside of their property. So that would have been a concern just on its own, that it would be within the right-of-way and would require revocable permit. Beyond that, the guidelines do not support installation of a retaining wall where in front side yards were visible from the street where they did not exist historically. So the guidelines would not support the installation of retaining wall in this location. They have indicated, the applicant has now indicated that they'd be willing to move the retaining wall and fence further back so that it would be within their property line, approximately in the location where the existing fence is now, and has also provided some information about drainage issues that are motivating them to make this request for the installation of the retaining wall. We don't have updated drawings showing changes to the height that would result in relocation of the retaining wall, because obviously they're moving it closer in on the slope, so the retaining wall would get shorter. And the outstanding concern remains that the guidelines don't support retaining walls where they did not exist historically. Staff thinks that there are likely other solutions than the installation of a retaining wall of this scale to address the drainage issues that they've noted with the property, and has recommended, I think, a denial at this time. But obviously the commission may wish to discuss it further, and they do have a continuance remaining, I believe, if you choose to go that way.
Okay, thank you, Katie. I'm assuming the applicants are present.
We're here.
Name and address, please, and tell us about the project.
He's the homeowner, so. I'm the homeowner,
Okay.
Daniel Daniels, and that's at 601 Northwest 21st Street.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan Miller, 427 Northwest 21st Street.
Okay, thank you.
Son-in-law.
Yeah, thank you. Tell us about your project.
Okay, so I think initially we had some issues with you all considering that this was going to abut the sidewalk and be within the 60-foot right-of-way. We have since pushed that back and conceded the 3 feet inside of the sidewalk. The height of the wall is still to maintain a 3-foot height throughout. And then the fence, I know there was an issue with the fence being a little bit longer, elongated to traverse the east side of the property line, which is going to actually stay within the main footprint of where the fence lies now. So no new fencing needed outside of the existing footprint. So you see where it comes up to the back side of the house, it would just essentially move down about 3 feet from where it sits now. That's where the wall would then be proposed, about halfway in between the inside of the sidewalk to the edge of the fence there.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, what questions do we have? Maybe none?
Sorry, still looking.
So the fence issue is taken care of, Katie, as far as from the backside of the house, that issue is resolved, but having the fence moving it out on top of the retaining wall is still going to close that, make it too far out, right?
They are moving it to where it would be on their property line, which would
Wherever
be,
the surveyor tells us.
yep.
We ended up getting the information too late. All the surveyors we contacted were 3, 4, some of them 6 weeks out. We have one, he's in the process. When we get that, that's where we'll want to put it. It's
Well-
just inside our line.
Okay, since that includes a survey and includes a redrafting of that, where it's going to be, would you be comfortable with doing a continuance to allow us to be able to see that and come back?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, because you're not going to be able to do anything prior to that coming anyway?
Correct. We have to have that line to know where to put it to begin with.
Okay, so if you're comfortable with that, then we can do a continuance until either next month or September, depending on when you think you'll get that information.
He was supposed to do it this week. He said if not, it'll be next week due to the holidays.
So I think the fence, wherever their property line is, we can administratively approve that, and it doesn't even have to come back to you. What we can't approve, and what the guidelines say is not appropriate, is the installation of a retaining wall anywhere along the side of the property facing the street. So if we continue it, I think that's fine, but I think it would be helpful if they knew at this point from the commission if there's going to be support for a retaining wall, or if there's more information needed to justify a unique circumstance in support of the retaining wall.
Well, I think with not even knowing where the retaining wall is going to be, that's kind of hard to tell them.
Just so I remember from last time, you said you wanted the retaining wall because A, there were some runoff issues, and B, it was getting, difficult to mow and landscape. Is that right?
That was not knowing your guys' stipulations for walls.
Right. I was just
So,
trying to remember if that was your reasoning for wanting to install a retaining wall.
yes, did you
So-
by any chance get to see the
The structural examination.
Right.
engineering report?
So the southwest side of the house has dropped significant, where there's a crack probably an inch. The detached garage is completely unusable. There is no more foundation left inside of that garage. It is, and we are finding from secondhand sources that there was a wall. It was a step-back wall, so there was a tiered wall with 2 steps. There's about a dozen stones in the back of their house that was used for this particular wall. We do have a photo from 1978 from the Wilson School playground that you can see a wall in place. It is grainy, I will say that. It is secondhand information, but there was a wall at one point which attached to the current stairs that are there now with a banister down the stairs. This would be the only terrace on that block, so the 601 kind of bears the brunt of a lot of the water erosion in this area.
Have we seen that photo? Do we have that, Katie?
I don't think it wasn't in your packet, was it?
It was not, no.
Okay.
We dug it up.
You just got it, yeah,
Just
that's
got
fine.
it.
And the old homeowner of our house, my house, actually presented that information.
So the structural damage, you can confidently say that that's due to, the runoff and the shifting soils and the
It's-
erosion.
It's significant, yeah.
I mean,
There's water standing inside of that detached garage anytime we have a 2-inch rain.
the fact that there was a wall there before and it's causing significant structural issue kind of feels like a unique circumstance to me.
Well, I think if we have documentation that there was a wall before, then putting one back is supported by the guidelines. I think we still need to know where it's going to be
Yeah.
and maybe get clarification on if it was going to be 3 feet at the sidewalk, how tall is it going to be now when it's that much farther in to the slope, if that makes sense.
It depends on
But I think just getting kind of a section drawing of
it.
what the existing slope is and what you're doing to that as part of putting in a retaining wall, so we understand
Okay.
what's happening to the topography of the site.
Does that need to come back or is that an administrative?
If you all are comfortable with the retaining wall, and we all are on the same page that other than the retaining wall, we're not making other dramatic changes to the topography.
Yeah.
I think that's something that could come back to staff. And if we had concerns about it and didn't feel like it was lining up with what was discussed here, we could still bring it back to you guys.
Okay.
And can we request seeing the historical photo
Yes.
as part of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm comfortable making a motion.
Let me first ask,
Oh,
do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item?
What do you think, Mesta Park,
They agreed with staff.
they agree with staff, so they're.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a motion for HPCA 2400045 to approve item 1 with the specific findings and with the condition that the applicant get with staff to precisely locate the wall and to ensure that the topography is not altered significantly.
And to provide documentation, correct?
And to provide documentation of the historic photo, sorry, yes.
That's all right.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second.
And that was just for
Everybody
item 1 of HPCA.
Correct, that was
Okay.
just on the retaining wall. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item is approved. Next up, we have item 2 on there, install fence, and I think this is the one we're waiting on survey, so we're going to continue, is that right? Yeah, we still have to have a vote on that? Oh, that will be?
Yeah.
Yeah, that can be administratively approved. We could go ahead and continue that item and probably go ahead and do it to the September meeting. And between now and then, once they get their survey in, we'll be able to administratively approve that.
Okay, can we have a motion from the commissioner to continue?
Yeah,
item
sorry, I
2?
forgot about that one.
That's all right.
I will make a motion to continue HPCA 2400045, item 2 to the September 4th meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a second. Commissioners, please cast your vote in PrimeGov. Who are we waiting on?
Me.
Oh,
I'm on it, sorry. Squirrel.
okay, that item has been continued. Thank you. Yep. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Okay,
Thank you.
next item, item 3, HPCA-24-00057 at 411 Northwest 20th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is Heritage Hills, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Madison Tunklin, James Gray Homes for Jacob Coleman for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct second-story addition elective, 2, construct rear covered porch elective, and 3, remove side entry landing and infill exterior door elective. This is an addition that meets applicable guidelines as far as size, proportion, differentiation from the historic structure. It's not actually expanding the footprint of the house, it's adding a second story on top of an existing 1 story and then adding on a rear porch. Staff did recommend approval with one condition, that they use wood siding rather than a fiber cement or smart side product. The guidelines do not support anything but wood siding on the historic structure itself, and go even farther in Heritage Hills to say even in non-visible locations, products shall be wood.
Okay, Katie, thank you. Is the applicant present? Okay, please state your name and address.
My name is Madison Von Tunglin. The project address is 411 Northwest 20th Street.
Okay, tell us about the project.
Yeah, so we're adding the first level covered patio and extending the second story bedrooms to include an ensuite bathroom, Jack and Jill bathroom, with 2 small closets, maintaining the historical integrity of the home, and then infilling a door that it's really not even a door, it's already paneled over, and I think I read in the comments that that was not deemed historical anyway. That's what we're doing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, what questions do we have?
think it's a pretty nice project. And as long as, you know, you're cool with using wood siding, I don't really have any comments personally.
Are you okay with the condition that staff mentioned?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, new material, 1x6 cedar bevel lap siding, paint grade.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any other questions?
Katie, I assume she can just get with you on that product?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay, it appears there's none. Commissioners, do we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA 2400057 with the specific findings in the staff report and with the condition that the applicant gets with staff on the product for the siding.
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve in a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item is approved.
Lovely,
Thank
thank you
you.
guys.
Okay, next up, we have HPCA-24-00058 at 710 Northwest 17th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is an apartment building in Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application by Mallory Carter, The Pearl at Mesta Park LLC for Ryan Carter for certificate of appropriateness to replace all siding and soffit elective and replace all screening elective. This is a property that is not exactly typical of the time period and architectural character of Mesta Park. It is over 50 years old, so you know, per the guidelines, we still consider it like any other structure, but do feel like there is some discretion and flexibility to be interpreted there with reviewing new materials on a building of this era that would likely not have used the same methods and materials as a typical 1920s, 1930s structure. We have recommended approval of the items just with the condition that they consider an alternate screening material where they're replacing the lattice that is maybe more consistent with the style of the building. What they have proposed is kind of a stained horizontal fence product.
Katie, thank you. Is the applicant present? Please step forward and state your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Ryan Carter. My address is 631 Northwest 17th Street.
Okay, great. Tell us about the project.
So I bought these apartments, or I'm a co-owner of these apartments, bought them May 3rd. And the goal is to replace all of the siding and the soffit, as well as that kind of deteriorating yellow lattice that you can see there in the picture. There's some pictures that you should have in your packet, as well as my scope of work packet, that shows that the siding, particularly on the inside, is rotting away, deteriorating, even getting some complaints from tenants about it. So it all does need to be replaced. I don't think it's fixable. I'm proposing using composite wood siding called LP Smart Side. It's actually more economically, or more environmentally friendly and sustainable than wood is. I think that point number one is that this is not your typical historic home, as has been mentioned. This was built in 1972, so it's, I guess, 52 years old. So I think that it's a unique circumstance for that reason. Two, the LP Smart Side is more environmentally friendly and sustainable than wood. And three, I do have overwhelming neighbor support. I've talked to many people, and actually many of the co-owners are neighbors who live in the area. And so everyone I've talked to has been, very on board with fixing this place up to make it a little nicer and improve the beauty of the neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
So you say that, Katie, the proposed siding discouraged by the guidelines but appears to conform. So being a unique circumstance that this is not a normal
Right, so
building,
the
being
guidelines
commercial.
allow for buildings that are less than 25 years old or that are determined by the commission to be non-historic to be reviewed under the guidelines for new construction. So I think you all could just state that you don't consider this property to be historic and contributing to the historic character of Mesta Park, and therefore the guidelines for new construction apply, and SmartSide is an acceptable material.
I don't remember, did
Something along
Mesta
those
Park say anything about it?
I think Mesta Park just agreed with staff comments.
They agreed with staff, but also said that they would be open to approval for both items.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Public?
do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve HPCA-24-00058 with the findings of staff.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve, and that was for both items, correct? Items
Correct.
1 and 2, okay.
That does not include the condition. You're cool with the screening as is?
Or-
Staff report has a condition about a potential alternate screening material.
Oh, well, are you okay with that? What
Sorry,
staff said?
what was the question?
About the screening material?
Yeah, so what I would like to do is replace it with a much nicer privacy wall. My idea was kind of a horizontal stained wood privacy wall to kind of give some privacy to those doors that are immediately on the other side of it. I think that kind of that yellow deteriorating lattice is very ugly and also falling apart and needs to be replaced. However, I do think that that's secondary to the siding, and obviously that's what I prefer to do, but if I can't get that approved but can get the siding, that's okay with me.
Can you approve that administratively on just the screening?
So if the applicant would be willing to work with staff on some, staff's concern was that you've got kind of a certain look to the building, and the board and batten siding, it has the look of painted wood, and then the horizontal stained cedar looks more like a modern kind of fence product. And that not that it necessarily has to be the same lattice, but that something that was more consistent with the other materials on the building would be more appropriate in those locations. So if you all are comfortable with staff working through that with the applicant, and if you're willing to do that, I think that could just be a condition of the approval.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, does he need to rephrase the motion?
Yeah, so if you'll just, well, Rita, does he need to
Yeah.
just add that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
With the condition.
Yes, if you would add that to include everything that you intend for the motion, any conditions, any specific requirements.
Yeah, just a condition that you work with staff for approval of the fencing, the masking fencing.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we've got HPCA-24-00061 at 529 Northwest 25th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
This is in Paseo, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Daryl McAllister, McAllister and Associates for Kyle McAllister for certificate of appropriateness to 1, close previous driveway curb cut on the south elective, 2, construct dwelling elective, 3, construct an attached garage elective, 4, install driveway elective, 5, repair sidewalk elective, 6, install paving north of the garage elective, 7, install a patio elective, 8, construct fence elective, and 9, install new sidewalk. 10, request recommendation to Board of Adjustment regarding variances to applicable regulations of the NC Tract 1 district. First, I would like to check. We were informed that the applicant didn't think they were going to be able to be here, and they didn't think they would have a representative here. So is anyone here to speak on this item? Okay, so just briefly, this is a vacant lot in Paseo. There was a house here at one time that I believe was declared dilapidated and removed, but that has been many, many years ago. It is kind of an odd site where there was a second house behind the house at the corner where this one is proposed. That second house remains, and they were allowed to split the lot so that it's its own lot, and this is then a smaller lot at the corner. The proposed house largely meets applicable guidelines. Staff was supportive of the design and the concept. They have kind of an unusual situation because of the size of the lot. They really could not configure it to accommodate a detached garage, but they've attempted to kind of create some separation and a visual break from the house to the street-facing garage. And we felt that as a new build, that was consistent with the guidelines, compatible with the surrounding built character. We did recommend that they slightly reduce the size of the garage. It is well over what the guidelines support for construction of a new garage, and that windows be added on the rear north elevation of the structure. There's, I think, only one window and a door on the back of the house, and that is going to be visible from the side street. The other issues with this are that there are a couple of code regulations that they would need, staff believes they would need a variance to, and that's the side and street-facing, street-facing side setback and the rear setback, and then also there's a provision in the NC regulations for the driveway width. So those would need to go through Board of Adjustment. The applicant has indicated that they agree to everything in the staff report and all the conditions, but with it being total new construction and some of those conditions being a little bit wide open, you all may feel that you need to continue it to allow for some actual discussion with the applicant. But they are amenable to any and all conditions as drafted in the staff report.
Okay, thank you, Katie. And just to make sure, the applicant or representative is not here with us today? Okay, commissioners, what are your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I think this is a really nice house, and I think it fits in with the Paseo neighborhood contextually, stylistically. I agree that the garage could be smaller, and I just did the quick math. It's like right at 500 square feet, so they wouldn't have to reduce it by much. So I think if they were amenable to bringing it in, you know, maybe a foot each way or something, and adding a couple windows on the back that they can get with staff on, then frankly, I'm cool to push this forward.
Yeah, I agree. I'm comfortable with all those findings and conditions that you have listed in the staff report, and if they're comfortable with that, I mean, I'm comfortable, so.
And we, as we've said on some others, if we work with them and changes to the garage, changes to the windows are something that we can't find a middle ground on, then it can still come back to the commission for further discussion.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak on this item? Okay, there being none. Commissioners, do we have a motion on these items?
I'll make a motion for HPCA 24000161 with all the conditions and findings listed in the staff report.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve and a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item is approved. Okay, next we've got HPCA-24-00066 at 419 Northwest 25th Street. Katie, tell us about this project.
Yes, this is Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Fallon Brooks Magnus, Jolly Bird Design for David DeWitt for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace his non-historic windows required, 2, replace front door required, 3, repair and replace wood siding, 4, alter window on east elevation, 5, add new window on east elevation, 6, infill window on west elevation with door, 7, replace and alter size location of windows on west elevation, 8, remove window box on south elevation, 9, infill all openings on rear elevation, 10, remove fiber cement trim and soffit and replace with wood trim and soffit, and 11, rebuild porch roof. All of those items are required. So this is a project that the commission saw previously under a different CA number. This, the vast majority of the work to this structure was approved with a number of conditions, but because those conditions were never met, it was new additional documentation to be submitted to staff. The CA was never actually issued, and it actually expired. It went the full lapse of time from the date that it was approved without being issued, so we were not able to do an extension or any further revisions to that existing CA. When we got back with the applicant on getting a new CA up and running, we noted a number of items that had already been completed and some that had been completed inconsistent with the previously reviewed CA, and some items that had been completed that were not addressed by the previous CA. Porch roof and columns had been completely rebuilt. Windows didn't appear to meet what was approved in the CA. Some products used that were not approved in the previous CA. So you have before you a new application intended to kind of start over and clear that up and take things back to what was initially approved and consistent with the guidelines. We have some items where we had some, and so because this is a new CA, we tried to not dig back into, we have months and months of documentation going back and forth with the applicant, but we really wanted this to be a fresh start. We have, let me scroll down to the recommendations. So there's several items that we've recommended approval that are in line with what was approved previously. Sorry guys, that's a lot of stuff. Removing the window box, items 8 and 9, removing the window box and infilling openings on the rear elevation was approved previously. Staff had no issues with that as it's shown now. Replacing the front door, and that's the same condition that was included previously, and I think the applicant did actually provide that before, but we'll make sure that we have that in this current CA. So that's recommended for approval with condition. Infilling a window on the west elevation with a door was approved previously. We've recommended approval of that again. And then items 1, 4, and 5, and 7, those are recommended for continuance because our window documentation is not complete. It says that they are clad windows. It doesn't say what they're clad with. You assume aluminum, but we need it to specify that. And then we also have lots of different kind of cut sheets, section drawings of windows with lots of different options, and no options have been selected. So those are the kinds of things that we need the applicant to make choices and selections so that we can verify that those all meet applicable guidelines. On item 3 and 10 is removing the fiber cement and installing the wood siding. We recommended approval of all that. And then reconstructing the front porch roof, that's to go back to the original historic configuration of the front porch. We do have a possible unique circumstance here. They've used some alternate materials on the porch columns. I would also note that the porch columns as constructed do not replicate the historic porch columns. So the commission would need to consider whether that, I think we would want those to be made consistent. They kind of do. They're not totally off.
We'll talk about it.
But, yes. So I know that's a lot. The applicant is here.
Yes.
And
So I want to start, can I start with clarifying something really quickly?
Yeah, we like clarity. Yeah.
So,
What's your name?
Yeah.
I'm notorious. I don't know why I even need to give my name.
Yeah, name and
Fallon Brooks
address.
Magnus, 733 Northwest 22nd, representing the applicant. So, the windows being deleted, moved, those kind of things, all of that was previously approved. The actual windows themselves, in what was submitted, they're just a aluminum clad JELD-WIN window. There's no extra selection that needs to be made. There's no muntins or any other options on them. So that's a new one. We can talk about it, I guess, but I'm not sure what to submit because we gave the brochure for what it is, but there's no extra selections. There's not any additional muntins or anything. And then as far as the porch, so we would like to discuss actually leaving it since my client has spent money in bringing it to this state, and we kind of talked about that a little bit today and what was done and the reason I think that it was done. And then I would say the material on the porch posts, even though the material is not consistent, the design of them is. The only thing that's missing is that there's like one vertical little tiny 1x on each side. So it's a little detail that's missing, but otherwise they're pretty much the same. I think that it's just not the material that is in the guidelines. So we're kind of asking for forgiveness on some of those things. Otherwise, I feel like it's fairly complete in the state that it's in. We just kind of need approval. So here we go. If you would like.
Yeah. Just state your name and address, please.
Yes, David D. Witt, 904 Northwest 40th Street. So for some background, this house had LP siding on it. It was kind of falling down. Really, the whole thing's been a bad choice. Anyways, we removed the LP siding, the LP trim. So we de-sided the house, and beneath it was this classic wood siding. And we de-sided the entire house, firmed up the framing, installed weather wrap, and then re-sided the house. So if you see in the pictures, like this siding up front is new, and then in the back it's a bunch of white. We put new siding up front, and then the remnants we put in the back. So that's some of the background, but the big key points here are that items 10 and 11, 10 being the smart trim, then 11 being the porch. So for the background on the smart trim, it was an accident, kind of a GC and myself complication, and you know, I know we're supposed to go back with cedar or otherwise wood, and it was lost communication, and I think because it had, like the day before, been smart siding, that's part of the confusion. And then second, on the item 11, the porch roof. So the porch roof was this 112 pitch that kind of made it up to the soffit of the main roof structure. And the roof was falling down. I would opine that it's kind of a bad structural design because you can't access the flashing beneath this like zero clearance soffit. So as this all happened, the roof was collapsing because of this kind of design flaw, I'd say, in the 112 pitch roof. So they rebuilt it with the join. And I think it's on cut sheet A31 where you can like see the old and new, and the ports got changed from a 112 to a 212. And it basically encapsulated this 4-foot piece of trim that you would see otherwise if you're up close. So all in all, like this is, I would say, an accident and embarrassing because we've done so much other work totally by the books, and you can tell we've rebuilt the house essentially. So for items 10, 11, what the petition is if considering, for whatever language would fit in, if there could be an allowance to let this stand, considering it's kind of a minute piece of the overall structure, and once it's painted and preserved, it should be good for another 100 years, along with the rest of the work we've done. And going on to the topic on the columns, we just need to add the accent trim, they had vertical bars in the middle, and we would do that pre-painting.
Okay, thank you. Commissioners, what questions do we have?
Are there any pictures in here of what the roof was?
So I don't.
In my packet, I think it's sheet A3.
A3.1.
Oh, is it dot one? Okay.
Here's a
and
There you go, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
big
There,
view.
okay, there's the street. Yeah.
So there you can see the wood detail on the front porch columns. And then let me see if it'll let me go down the block. But you can see how the porch roof was separate from the main roof of the house. It sits slightly below the main roof and is not tied in. And then if you go back to the current condition, see if you can get to one that shows on the side how it's just continuous now, the way it's been built.
Oh, okay.
That
You
picture.
can kind of see.
And did you say that the material of the columns was a different, is it a composite?
Say that again, sorry.
the columns, is that a composite material or is it just the trim issue?
I believe it's hardy, smooth trim. So once it's painted and caulked and everything, you'll never know from the street anyway.
But that's just the trim?
Yeah, it's just the trim. So all the wood siding was replaced with new, and then they just did the trim and the columns in the hardy trim.
Okay, so the columns are hardy.
Yeah, and we're kind of asking for forgiveness on that a little, so that we don't have to go back and replace all of it. Same thing on the roof. You know, it's a very minor detail. I know it's historic, but I think it's just kind of one of those things that, you know, contractors don't always realize they're in a historic district. They do what seems like a better solution and solve a problem that, you know, all of that was rotten. That whole roof had to be replaced anyway, like David said, so.
No, I get it. That's a much better option for water.
So the staff report says that the columns are hardy board, and I'm looking to see. Because the documentation says rebuild porch posts with wood as the proposed work. I think it was indicated somewhere in the application that those were not, that the porch columns were not wood.
Sorry.
Regarding the porch column material, we could do whatever it takes to comply with that. I think it's actually plywood with a veneer on it. So I think it is all wood. But if it were hardy board, we could replace those. I'd have to go knock on it to see what it's really made of.
Mm-hmm. On the windows, just to clarify, I'm going to share my screen again. So we've got sheet after sheet in the submitted packet of different window options with different muntin patterns, different kind of opening configurations, different jamb configurations, a different muntin. And I know you're not doing muntins, but this is one of those where we would want the applicant to clean that out so that you're showing us exactly what you're doing and we don't have, and you know this, and
I do.
You know, it was just one of those, we want to make sure that we are hearing, that we're not guessing and picking and choosing, that we're hearing from the applicant, this is exactly the product and the configuration of the product that we're going to, you know, install.
Sure. Yeah, with window submittals, I've never gotten it right, like ever. So I think that this was me just getting frustrated and going, you figure it out. Sure. So I'll be glad to provide something, but I don't know, like with the operator sections and all of that stuff, like I don't even know. Like I don't know exactly which one it is. Like having to dig through all of the Geldwin material to find exactly which one they ordered, that's why it gets difficult. So my apologies. I will submit something.
Every window manufacturer has different documentation and they have so much documentation.
Yes.
I think staff would be happy to sit down and not even just for this, but just in general for everybody to kind of learn and improve, to look at it and figure out which of these specifications actually matter for what we're looking for.
Yeah, because sometimes it feels like a moving target. Like it feels, like I've used the same window submissions for a while and then all of a sudden like a reflectivity or something wasn't right. I was like, it's the same one I've been using. So I think that's the result of this is just me being frustrated, so.
Katie, can I ask you a question? So, you know, you pointed out the roof is not exactly what was there, but the staff report does recommend approval, obviously with specific findings and conditions.
So they are proposing in what they submitted to rebuild the roof to the historic condition. But what I'm hearing now in person is that the applicant would actually rather not do that.
Well, sure.
So.
So that.
So staff feels very strongly about maintaining the integrity of the historic front porch. That is a character-defining feature.
Gotcha.
The separate roof from the primary roof is a very typical historic condition. I personally think that is an incredibly important feature to be rebuilt accurately. It's the commission's decision. I understand that it's a great inconvenience to the applicant because the work's already done, but the work was never even proposed in the first place. So it shouldn't have even been done at all, much less done differently from what was there to begin with. So
Okay, sorry,
that's why our recommendation is to approve, is because what they proposed initially is different from what the discussion was here in the meeting.
right.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if it was like reconstruct because it's already been done, so they're going back but yeah, no, okay. I'm caught up, sorry.
Okay, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay, commissioners, what are our thoughts on these items?
Do we need to take them kind of one by one and knock them off so
There's a lot of
we
things
don't
I
get
think that would
overwhelmed?
provide some clarity. Okay. I mean, item 1, remove the window box and fill those. That all seems pretty straightforward.
And item 2.
And item 2 as well, and I would be cool with approving those along with the specific findings and conditions.
So just to clarify, those are recommendations 1 and 2 for items 8, 9, and 2. Just so we get our numbering right.
Yeah.
So you could say, motion to approve items 8, 9, and 2 with the findings and conditions in the staff report.
Yes, and I think we could.
And you could add in
Number
item
3,
6 unless
item
there's,
6.
yeah.
Yeah.
The numbering.
Sorry, I know the numbering thing.
Okay,
And you could do number 5, item 3 as well, which is the wood siding. I'm so sorry. But would rather get all the approvals in one go.
Sure.
I think 10 and 11 are the only ones that are really questionable. All the others, I think, were approved previously.
Right. Okay, then we will just start with those items. You guys gonna make me do this? All right.
2, 3, 6, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve HPCA 24000066, items 8, 9, 2, 6, and 3, with the specific findings and conditions as noted in the staff report.
And 10.
Oh, and 10. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. And 10, with the specific findings and conditions noted in the staff report.
okay, we've got a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a second. All other commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
Oh, you guys just seconded that before I could say anything. Item number 10 was, so you guys approved item 10 just now? Is that what happened? Okay, so item number 10 was to remove the work that's been done and rebuild it with
Yeah,
wood.
10 shouldn't have been in there.
And, yeah. So 10 and 11 were further discussion. And the
Just make
rest
a
of them
motion
should
to
just-
rescind number 10.
I'm so sorry, guys.
That's all right.
They made
Please,
me add
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, rescind and
Yeah.
then.
Together on the page.
Mod item 10, everything else. Do I have to re-say it, or is that good enough?
Rescind it, number 10.
Oh, I've rescinded number 10, okay.
You're going to make a motion, correct? Is
Make a
that-
motion to
yeah.
rescind it.
Motion to
And-
rescind item 10 if that's your pleasure.
And item 1, replace the front door, should also have been, sorry.
Okay, we've got a motion.
And so can I just ask a question really quickly? Why did we hop around? Like, why didn't we just say item 1 through 9? Like,
I was just
Because of
going
how
in
they're
order.
because
arranged
those were all
on the-
previously approved, so I'm having a hard time keeping up. So 10 and 11 should be the only ones that we really need to like discuss, I think.
I think there was 4, 5, 7, and 1 that I thought staff had continued.
Yeah, that was the items for the windows that you were gonna get with staff on.
Okay,
Because those,
I mean, so the windows that are in are within the guidelines, it's just a matter of what we have submitted being reasonably demonstrating what's there.
So I think Caitlin was making a motion to approve things consistent with what the staff report recommended. The windows were not recommended for approval, so that needs a different motion because we're going to have to craft
see.
different
Okay.
language. So, yeah,
I didn't
but
see that.
yes. It's,
Okay.
Yeah, there's gonna be like 4 different.
I don't have the
motions,
staff
Joanne, I'm
report in
sorry.
front of me, so.
Okay, we have a motion to rescind approval of item 10. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. That did pass? Okay, that item was rescinded. Okay. There it is, thank you. Okay. Okay,
so remaining, we have 10 and 11.
okay,
Fiber cement trim and rebuilding the porch. And then items 1, 4, 5, and 7, which all deal with windows.
okay.
And yes, I think the configuration of the windows as shown was all approved previously. It was just a matter of making sure we have the correct documentation of the replacement windows. So I think those can be, it's hard because the reason we're doing this is because all this stuff was approved with the condition that it be submitted to staff, and then it sat on our desk for a year and a half and didn't get issued. But I think we're on the same page now that we can approve those with a condition that window documentation be submitted to staff. And yes, we have it. It'll just be us getting our heads together and making sure we have what we need.
Yeah, I really just want, so I would hopefully prefer not to come back on this one. That's why I was just making sure, like, why aren't we including these? I was confused about what was happening, so.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for items 1, 4, 5, and 7 for approval with the condition that window documentation is submitted to staff for their review and approval.
Okay, we've got a motion for 1, 4, 5, and 7. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, it looks like those items are approved with conditions. Okay, so now that just leaves items 10 and 11. Okay, commissioners, any thoughts on these?
So 11, staff feels pretty strongly that it needs to be rebuilt, right?
Yeah, I mean, so from staff's perspective, the guidelines are pretty clear about both of these things, really. The guidelines say wood products need to be replaced with wood on the historic structure, not with fiber cement or other substitute materials, and that porches are character-defining features and must be repaired and replaced and reconstructed in kind to match the historic details. I think if either of these requests had come in with the work not having been done, it would be a very easy no. That no, that's not what the guidelines support, that's not allowed. So staff, you know, we don't like setting the precedent of you do it, you get away with it, we go ahead and approve it anyway, even though it's not allowed because the work's already done. So.
Yeah, I agree. It'd be one thing if it was like small awning on the back of the house or something, but it's literally the whole front elevation, so it's hard for me to argue with something that changes, I think, pretty significantly the elevation.
Okay, do we have a motion for numbers 10 and 11?
So just again to clarify, we would be approving 11 rebuild porch required as proposed in the packet, if I guess the applicant.
So I will say on that one, I think it's fine to rebuild the porch posts. That's not going to take a whole lot, and the trim and all that. Like if that's fine. The roof, I mean, that's costly, and it's not like it was something that was done like we were trying to pull one over on the commission or something. Like it just got done in the field that way because it made more sense. It's just a lot of cost, and I'll remind you guys that when we came before the commission 2.5 years ago, on this one originally, I honestly believe you guys would have let us tear this house down. And so I understand that it's not the historic condition, totally get that, but just for cost-wise and also just the whole, having to open it all back up and it's, is there any argument I can make here for it?
I will say that, you know, this property has been allowed to be split and to go from 1 dwelling to 5 dwellings, you know, with an entire parking lot in the backyard. I think the commission has been incredibly accommodating of the work to be done to this property. The roof should not have even been touched. You should have a building permit to rebuild the roof, which I assume you don't, because you can't get a building permit if you don't have a CA. So, and I'm only staff, I'm not the commission, but I think this is an incredibly significant and defining feature of the home. So that is staff's position on the proposal.
Do you mind if I speak? I know it's not time for that, but Holly Hunt with 400 Northwest 23rd Street. When I look at that, I would just point out that that's an incredibly low slope roof. In fact, asphalt shingles aren't even recommended for that low of a slope. Usually they want 312 or greater. And so what this condition, which I understand it's historic, but what it could create is further water damage to the historic structure in snow or ice that sits up there and melts and penetrates that wood fascia there where those two, where there's a gap in the two roofs. So even though I'm not, this is just pointing that simple fact out, that this could result in further damage to the historic structure if we rebuild it back with that condition.
Thank you.
And I do think that, you know, staff, the commission would be amenable to a revised design to address issues with water runoff and that sort of thing with the roof, if the slope of it needs to be modified, if there needs to be a different element of the flashing and where it meets the house and that sort of thing. But I think that can be done and still retain the overall architectural kind of design of the roof being distinct from the roof of the house.
Okay. Then I will ask for a continuance on item 11.
What date?
On item 10, do you want to continue?
Wait, which,
or
which one's which one?
10 is the fiber cement trim and soffit instead of going back with wood.
Any of those?
We can vote on the trim and we can come back with a new design. We'll vote on 10.
Okay, yeah, then vote on 10. We're good. Thank you.
What was that?
We're going to vote on 10. Go ahead and, yeah, it's fine.
So you want to continuance?
Continue item 11.
Okay.
Vote on number 10, yeah.
Which meeting do you want to continue item 11 to? Because you'd have to have material, if for the August, you'd have to have materials by next Tuesday?
It's
By
August
next Tuesday?
7th.
September 4th.
August 7th or September 4th. And, yeah, packet goes out on the 30th.
August 7th.
August 7th.
Yeah, it's just a little roof detail, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've still got 2 remaining items to vote on, number 10 and number 11. Applicant has asked for a continuance on number 11. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to continue HPCA 2400066, item 11, to the August 7th meeting.
Okay, thank you. And we've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that has been continued to the August 7th. Okay, that just takes us to number 10. Please remove the fiber cement trim and soffit and replace with wooden trim. Do we have a motion for this one?
I'll make a motion for item 10 with the specific findings and conditions listed in the staff report.
Is that to approve?
So I think it would be to approve because I think what my application said was that we were wanting to.
Yeah, correct, to approve, yeah.
Okay, to approve. So we have a motion to approve number 10. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, that item is approved, number 10. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have an admin question for staff. I think we have a
Yeah, we
stop
can-
work on the property for building permits. I was wondering, since the work we need to do is on the inside, if there's any way we could get a pass to get the permit, then just have like the CO on hold until this is resolved?
Is it for interior remodel?
Right, it's like we need to get permits to do plumbing and wiring and such.
Yes,
Framing?
possibly. Usually with an interior remodel, we can work with plan review staff to let them know that it's limited to the interior and that you're getting the CA. If you'll email me, and if you can give me like the permit number, then we'll take a look at that and see if we can get it moving.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and for everybody else, we're taking a brief break. We've had a commissioner step out, so I think that drops us below quorum, so quick break. Yeah. Okay, but we're back with quorum, but I think our applicant for the next 3 items has just stepped out, so as soon as she returns. 3-minute break, okay. It is the day before a holiday. We're getting there.
I saw that you were the next 3 items. I was like, oh, I'm going to need a break before this. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
We're wait, okay. Holly, we've lost quorum, so just give us just a couple minutes as soon as, no, it's okay.
Okay, we have quorum again, so we can march on.
It is like a day before a holiday, isn't it? Just like, okay, we've got this. Okay. Do we need to call roll again? Yes. Okay. Keith, if you could please call roll, I'd appreciate it.
Milner,
Present.
Gaines,
Present.
McBride,
Present.
Orr,
Present.
Whitley,
Present.
of quorum.
Okay, we've got quorum. Okay, let's get back to business. Next up is HPCA-24- I'm sorry.
Could I request that the commission, if you agree, that we could move item 7 to the end of the meeting? That way we could discuss 8 and 9, which are both, I'm representing, which are both recommended for approval, hoping to get those knocked out and then
Do you want to
come back to 7 at the end.
end of the meeting or the end of cases for individual
No,
consideration?
end of cases for individual consideration,
make sure.
pardon me.
Need a motion to switch that? Okay. Okay, we would need a motion to move item 7.
I'll make a motion to
To the-
remove, move item 7, HPCA 24000067 to the end of the items for individual consideration.
Okay, we've got a motion to move item 7 to the end of items for individual consideration. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Everybody get to vote? Oh, it did, okay. That item's been moved. Maybe it's just my screen, sorry. Okay, that takes us to HPCA-24-00068 at 709 Northwest 42nd Street.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Michael Rubenstein for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace all windows elective, 2, replace garage siding elective, and 3, repair retaining wall elective. Staff has recommended approval of repair of the retaining wall. We recommended approval with conditions of the replacement of the windows, with those just being that the commission has kind of findings and condition that each window on each elevation has been determined to have been adequately illustrated as deteriorated 50% or more beyond repair. And then we recommended approval with unique circumstance of replacement of the siding on the accessory structure. They had proposed hardy plank smooth lap siding. The applicant has since indicated that they have actually found a wood siding that matches what's there, and the homeowner would prefer to use that. That is consistent with the guidelines, so it could actually be approved without the unique circumstance with the condition that they use wood siding.
Hello, Commissioners. Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architects at 400 Northwest 23rd Street. We're thrilled with everything that the staff report reflects. So in regard to the item to replace all the windows, this has traditionally been a very difficult task for representatives and homeowners. But I would just like to point out that these windows are approaching 100 years old, and once they get to this point and they experience the level of deterioration, and in my window survey, which you can see, the same type of damage is visible on on every window, I shouldn't say almost, and the type of damage that has occurred is such that the whole sash would have to be replaced, because there's no way to piece in wood keeping one part of the sash, and otherwise it just creates a further water infiltration weak spot. So that is why 50% or more, and as you can see on the floor plan, I've given an estimate for each one. The west side are considerably bad, as well as the east, but even the front facade windows, there's very little overhang on this house, roof overhang. So these windows have been pelted with rain for almost a century. And this damage, even despite the fact that we've got storm windows on this house that were added later than the original construction, I would add, are ceasing to do anything to help that water infiltration. And I would also point out that probably as well as the exterior damage that you can see, chipping, splitting, and so forth, on the interior, that water infiltration is even more prevalent. You can see the original stain bubbling. You can see bubbles under that. That is water trying to escape from the wood. And this is visible on every single window. Also, majority of the windows do not operate. Majority of the windows no longer have their counterweights intact. So the proposal for new windows, which we finally got, we did not have it in time for the deadline, but I hold in my hand, for all new wood windows, it does specify simulated divided light. So that's one thing that should you move to approve today, I would also like you to agree to a simulated divided light muntin. And the reason we would like to use simulated divided light with a spacer with muntins applied on both sides of the window is so that we can maintain the existing muntin profile. Currently, the windows that that are in production today for true divided light, that muntin approaches, it's over an inch, usually 1 1/8 inches to 1 1/4 inches. And that's just the nature of the way that windows are made today. It has nothing to do, so you can't get a true divided light with a muntin profile that is historic. So in order to maintain that historic look with our new wood windows, we would like to go with a simulated divided light so that the windows could match exactly to what is there. And again, those muntins only occur on the front half of the building or house. So, this is common. The rear windows and the back parts of the house, they removed muntins just to save some money. So wherever there is divided light, we'll go back with simulated divided light. Where there aren't existing muntins, we will go back with a straight glass pane wood window. But all the windows will be wood and will match the muntin profile that is currently exhibited on the house. I would go a step further and say we know that aluminum clad windows are a superior product for the lifetime and lifespan of wood windows. It also eliminates the need for a storm window, which I think detracts from the historic window. A beautiful wood window covered by an aluminum, storm window to me is less attractive than an aluminum clad wood window. So that's my little spiel on that. I'm thrilled with approval on the maintenance of the retaining wall, which again, it won't change. We're just fixing it, and we'll do wood siding to match the existing profile. I'll submit that to staff. And the windows, I hope you'll agree that an aluminum clad wood window matching the existing historic window would be a great approval for the lifetime, for another 100 years of this home. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, what questions do you have?
So I personally agree with you that I would prefer to see a more historic profile on a muntin, even if it's simulated light. And I personally would rather see simulated lights over storm windows, because from the street, you can't tell. And when you see storm windows, all it does is put glass in front of that and reflects. But that's my personal opinion, and right now our guidelines don't support simulated light. And we have very recently denied simulated light windows. We've talked about at our most recent guideline meetings trying to find a way to maybe be able to incorporate those, but that would be on like the back half or back third of the house where they're not visible from the street. So fortunately right now I don't know how we have a path to approving those. I very personally agree with you. I do.
Could that be a unique circumstance that we couldn't match the historic profile without using simulated divided light?
So a couple of things, you can have a true divided light window that matches a historic profile. It has to be a single pane window.
Right.
That is an option. We have in fact approved simulated divided light windows with unique circumstances based on matching the muntin profile, based on other characteristics of the window. Typically we get a comparison drawing so that the commission can really see and document in the file, this is what we would be getting with a true divided light product. This is what we would be getting with a simulated divided light product. The other thing I want the commission to fully review and evaluate is the condition of the windows. That was kind of left an open question in the staff report. We have lots of photos of damage of the brick mold around the windows on the exterior. The windows themselves on the exterior are covered by a storm, so it's kind of hard to tell that damage. We have some photos of damage on the interior, but we also have some shots that are so up close you can't really tell what you're looking at or where it is. So if there are questions about true divided light versus simulated divided light, if there are questions about condition of the windows, it may be the most appropriate path to continue that item. Give the applicant time to prepare a kind of justification for a simulated divided light if they want to try to make that case. And maybe we make sure we've got everything we need to verify that replacement is warranted in the first place.
So Katie, on a traditional divided light, which is smaller than what you can get right now on the market, is that pretty much the case? That, because it sounds like this is a question that we're going to keep pounding our heads on, because we either have to change the historic fabric of these windows or allow for the divided light that's...
Right, so you can get a single pane true divided light window that is largely the same as a historic single pane divided light window. If you go to thermal pane, the muntins, a thin, delicate muntin like you have on a historic window isn't strong enough to support 2 panes of glass. So the muntins therefore just have to get thicker. And you end up with, instead of a 5/8 or 7/8 inch muntin, you end up with a 1 1/8, 1 1/4 inch muntin. On a window that's 2/1, it's not that noticeable. When you get to a window that's a 6 light, 9 light, maybe a 5 or 6/1, where you've got all these thin vertical panes of glass, those wider muntins start to make more of an impact on what it looks like. And it starts to look not consistent with the historic window. On a simulated divided light, the muntin is not actually providing any structural support to the glass, so it can be whatever you want it to be. We know that with National Park Service, historic tax credit projects, they're getting more comfortable with simulated divide windows, at least in certain
Well, that was
circumstances.
my other question was, has there been any change from the people above on making change? Because obviously, I think if somebody's going to replace all the windows in the house, they're not going to do it with a single pane window.
And I think it's a bummer to put people in a position where they feel like they have to in the time of trying to be energy efficient. Because either they're going to have super drafty windows, or then they have to go and buy storm windows to put in front of that, which I feel like defeats the purpose anyway. So
I would agree.
Just my personal thoughts.
I'm gonna take it back a step though, and like I'm looking at these windows, and they look like the windows in my home. And I brought I was like, is that my window? I brought Wood Window Rescue in, walked through it, and he's like, oh, these are great bones. They just need a little TLC. I don't see anything in here that's just deteriorated beyond. It takes time, it takes care, it does take money, but I don't see that, that these are not preservable.
Well, I would point out some of the interiors, because you have to remember too, the interior of the window is not exposed to the elements. So when we see considerable shrinkage, splitting, cracking, that is indication of what's happened and seeped all the way through the window to the backside. That's just the way water works and how this damage occurs. As well as at all the muntins, you can see that glazing, when you begin to have almost 1/4 of an inch around that glazing, that's the shrinkage, that's the contraction of that wood, and which contributes more to infiltration, both air and water. So when you look at these examples from the interior, that shrinkage has even cracked some of the windows. So even though, could we go through and have, someone give some third party give an individual survey of each window? Yes. Would they concur with what I've shown? 100%. Because what the damage you see on the interior, it is indicating what has happened at the exterior. So again, for me, these homeowners, they love this home. They've owned it for years. They don't plan on selling this home. And all they want to do is preserve the home, preserve the historic quality. And right now, You know, even restoring these windows, they still have single pane windows. They still would have to go back with storm windows. And, you know, to them, the better choice is to get the highest quality, superior product that's available today, just like they would have done 100 years ago. So while I understand that it's possible, perhaps in this case, I know 50% or more of this window would have to be new, and therefore it's grounds for replacement.
I'm not seeing that, but, so I'm not convinced. I'll just tell you from my personal perspective.
Would you be okay with continuing that item and providing a little bit more documentation that the windows are in that need of, in that state of disrepair, that they are deteriorated beyond 50%, and then in that providing the documentation Katie spoke about, showing what the profiles would be for a true light versus a simulated light?
Sure. I would say we do have a third-party person here. This is the GC for the homeowners, and so I'd love for you to hear his opinion of the deterioration of the windows.
Okay. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Zeb Gotro. I live at 245 Northwest 35th Street.
Thank you.
I mean, one thing I would say is looking at a photo of a window is probably not going to give you the idea that you would need to know that it needs to be replaced, or 50% of it needs to be replaced, but I can assure you if you see these in person, it would be very clear. One of the problems with refinishing wood windows is that you really can't typically just replace one piece. It's typically one piece and the piece that piece is touching, the piece that piece is touching on the other side. So one piece of rot typically turns into 5 or 6 pieces of rot, and you're at 50% almost instantly on wood windows that have been this damaged. I've done wood window refinishing on no less than 20 houses in historic neighborhoods, and that's the reason that I have come to this conclusion from my own personal experience doing these windows.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I do think that's helpful. I don't know that we can prove a window product today because we don't actually have it.
I still struggle with every single window is beyond 50% deterioration.
What would it take to convince you?
I mean, it would be helpful to see the entire window, I think, instead of just like snippets and kind of see.
I mean, I did take pictures of every single window. You know, it just got to the point where it was a little redundant and hard to label. So what I chose to do instead was take it wall by wall and show the damage where it occurs over and over and over in hopes that would be clear that the lifespan of all these windows is at the same level. So the level of damage is equal across the board. We see the same type of damage on all 4 sides of the house. So, you know, like Zeb said, short of walking through this house and touching it and feeling how soft it is, I just don't know if more pictures would have done it. I could certainly have submitted over 150 pictures that I took. Again, I was in the hopes that, you know, the only other replacement job I've done, it took 3 continuances, and at the end of that 3rd meeting, it was Mary Jo Meacham, you know, our great leader back in the day, who finally just said, you know, these homes are reaching their 100 year, and, you know, there's just a certain lifespan that wood can go. And a lot of these homes, and just like Commissioner Gaines said, this is going to be coming up over and over and over. So I think it's clear, what we need to establish is that what is our goal here? Is it to force people to spend a lot of money that is to repair windows when they're going to go ahead and replace 50%, and then we come back to the commission and say, see, this window is now 50% new material, and now you have to approve it. Instead, can't we be more proactive in understanding these homeowners are trying to improve their properties, improve the neighborhood, while maintaining true to the historic fabric? You know, when someone's willing to spend 70 grand on new windows because they have to use wood, I think that's indication they're trying to do the right thing. They're not trying to skate past any guidelines, but there's just so much you can do with wood material. It is susceptible to water, expansion, contraction, and we see evidence in every single window.
I'm
here.
not comfortable approving it today, so that's just my,
Could I hear from some other
but
commissioners?
that's,
what
I'm
your
just giving you,
thoughts
I'm
are?
one person, so.
Yeah, what do you think? Anyone?
Commissioners, any other thoughts?
I mean, like I
on-
said earlier, I think we should continue this because we can't approve a window product we don't have. And it would be one thing if you were proposing a true divided light that could be worked out administratively with staff, but since it's simulated, I think the commission probably would want to see the profiles and know if what we're approving, if it's moving away from the guidelines.
Okay, very well. Let's continue that to the next meeting, the July meeting, please. Or no,
Or
I'm sorry,
August 7th.
I meant July deadline. I think about it in terms of that. But yes, that would be fine, and if we could approve the other items with the condition that it be wood siding on the garage, we can move forward.
Anybody else here to speak?
Yeah, let me ask, any other members of the public wish to speak on these items? Okay, commissioners, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to continue item 1 of HPCA 24000068 to the August meeting.
Okay, we've got a motion to continue item 1. Do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, we've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
Not you, though.
I vote yay.
Okay, item 1 has been continued to the August 7th commission hearing.
And I
We've
make
still got items 2 and 3.
a motion to approve items 2 and 3 of HPCA 24000068 with the conditions and specific findings listed in the staff report.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve item 2 and 3.
That was actually to
Not using
insert
the
the
unique.
condition that they use wood siding.
Correct, yes. And not using the unique circumstance, correct.
Okay, thank you for clarification. Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Gaines. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
I vote yay.
Okay, items 2 and 3 are approved. Okay, thank you. Okay, next up, we've got HPCA-24-00069 at 832 Northwest 39th Street.
This is in Crown Heights, Ward 2, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture, for Davis Hudeberg for certificate of appropriateness to 1 demolished garage elective. The applicant has the intention of coming back with an additional item to construct a new garage. They were not ready to go forward with review of that at this time, but wanted to proceed with trying to get the demolition of the garage approved. Staff did concur with their assessment of the garage's condition, that it appears to be infeasible to rehabilitate without the loss of all or nearly all fabric contributing to the historic integrity of the garage, and we did recommend approval of this item.
Okay, thank you.
Hi,
The
do I need
applicant
to state my name and everything again?
You do.
Holly
Yeah.
Hunt.
Thank you.
Northwest, 400 Northwest 23rd Street. So yes, just to give you guys a little bit of background, this type of construction is stucco over metal lath. And what they do upon the wall studs is attach metal lath, which is similar to chicken wire, and then layers and layers of stucco mud, okay? That contributes greatly to the weight of it. That's why we see the pulling away of the wainscoting and so forth.
Holly?
Yes.
Can we just ask if anybody has any concern with the demolition on this?
Sure.
Yeah.
Are we all in agreement with staff?
Let's just pause you.
Fantastic.
I'd still have to ask if there's any members of the public that
Yep.
wish to speak on this item.
Thank you, Commissioner Poor.
There being none, do we have a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion for HPCA 240069 to approve item 1 with the specific findings on the staff report.
Okay, we've got a motion to approve item 1. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, it appears that item has been approved.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Okay, now this takes us back to number 7, HPCA-24-00067 at 600 Northwest 21st Street.
This is in Mesta Park, Ward 6, consideration and possible action on application by Holly Hunt, Sam Gresham Architecture for Jennifer Burjo for certificate of appropriateness to 1, construct new rear addition elective, 2, construct new covered porch at front elevation elective, 3, construct new covered porch at side elevation elective, 4, relocate electric meter elective, 5, remove rear concrete steps and landing elective, 6, construct new patio and steps at rear elevation elective, 7, construct pool elective, and 8, construct new brick chimney and existing fireplace elective. Staff has recommended continuance of all items on this application. We had some documentation that was missing, which was largely which is part of the reason for the continuance. There are several kind of items of concern to staff, and some of these are really more building code than HP considerations, but the placement of the proposed pool and its proximity to the rear of the dwelling, the placement of the proposed side porch and its proximity to the property line and the structure immediately to the west may be issues that need to be worked through with plan review. The applicant is proposing a chimney where a chimney, to staff's knowledge, did not exist historically. That's kind of creating a very prominent visual architectural feature on a house that did not have that originally, or at least we haven't seen documentation of that. Overall, the proposed addition is within the guidelines for allowable square footage and size and appears compatible with the structure. We're just missing documentation of cladding materials, other products of the design. The applicant has also indicated that they believe there would have been a front porch historically. There's not a front porch now. We don't have documentation of what that would have been, so that would be kind of another item up for this discussion for the commission. I think that kind of summarizes the overall basics.
Okay.
And there were neighborhood comments, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, we've got the applicant present.
Hello, Holly
One more time.
Hunt.
Thank you.
400 Northwest 23rd Street. So for brevity's sake, I would like to talk first about items 1 and then 4 through 7, which I believe we can approve today with conditions that we come back to staff. The addition that's visible on the main level is 80 square feet. It's a very tiny addition on the rear. The basement, to my knowledge, has never really been considered as part of an addition because it's completely not visible, nor is it in any way detracting from the historic fabric. It's clearly distinguishable and completely underground. So while I understand the total square footage is above 750, I hope we can look at this as the main level addition being that which we are adding onto the historic fabric, and the basement level not really being of that consideration for the guidelines, as we say typically. The rest are in direct relationship to item 1, such as relocating the electric meter and providing new steps and so forth. And what I would say about the pool is in the construction of the basement, of course, substantial changes to the underground would occur, resulting in a new footing that would be, completely designed by a structural engineer that would incorporate that pool into the footing. And that is allowed by building code. What they don't want to see are 2 independent footings that are within 5 feet of one another. But if they are, the design incorporates the weight of each and they are a holistic design, that is allowed for by building code. So I would just specify that. For these items that I've just discussed, there's a lot of support in the staff report. It is a long staff report, so I don't blame you for not having read every word. But the only items that I see in the staff report that are against those items that we're discussing right now are, further documentation. I did provide a window brochure. I could be more clear, but of course I can work with staff to provide exact window details. I detail out the windows, dimension them, and like I said, specs have been provided to staff, but we can clarify those with staff. that we're going to match the wood siding that exists. I can, again, provide that to staff. But the rest of those items that I'm mentioning, I think are things that we can approve. Items 2, 3, and 8, I would really be okay with the continuance today. Just wanted to get some feedback from you all. So if you don't, I mean, do you want to go ahead and dive into those now? Or should we stop and talk about the items 1, 4, and through 7?
Commissioners, any thoughts? Do you want to
Break this out separately?
ask specifically about any of these items or make a motion on any of them? I know it's a lot, so I know everybody's thumbing
The
through.
comments from Mesta they were in agreement with staff's recommendations to continue, is that right?
Again, it's that lack of documentation. I'm getting better at knowing exactly what staff needs, but again, when you're working, especially 3 projects this month, that's just a lack of time, and that's certainly something I can work with staff, before the next deadline to have all that to them, if that could be an approval condition.
So the rear addition is how much?
It's 80 square feet over.
80 square feet.
I would actually agree with Holly's assessment that we generally don't include like a basement. In this case, you're creating a basement. Is that correct?
Correct.
There's not a basement there
That's
now.
all. That's correct.
But, I would say we would treat it the same as if there was a basement and you were finishing it out, or if there was a partial basement and you were going to expand that. It is not affecting anything above ground that anyone can see that impacts the character of the historic district. So I would be very comfortable with not counting that square footage as part of the addition.
I can agree with that. And the 1% over the lot coverage doesn't.
Yes, because we're removing that terrible, ugly carport that's in the back. Staff mentions that that's not discussed, but it's listed on the scope of work as being removed. It's non-historic, and it covers a great majority of the backyard, which is not contributing at all to the structure or to the lot.
I guess what I question most here is the new porch.
Well, those are items 2, 3, and 8 that I'd like to discuss at the end, that I'm good with
at
the
the end.
continuance on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just want some feedback from you all today on that.
Okay. Sorry, a lot of scrolling here. Okay, so electric meter is number 4.
So 1, and then 4 through 7.
How do you feel, Katie, on the new pool? What was the concern with that?
It was a building code question, wasn't it? Isn't that what?
Yeah, our concern just looking at it, because what our experience has been in the past is that they've said a pool is a structure, and a structure has to be a certain distance from another structure. And seeing it that close to the house, we thought, I don't know that you can get that permitted. So if the commission did approve it, that would just be something that we would discuss with plan review as this went along through the process to get a building permit. Beyond that, Daryl, I'm going to look to you, or Holly too. The lot coverage includes the pool?
Absolutely, the
Okay.
whole patio, every bit of concrete in the rear.
It's an unusual configuration to have it tucked up against the house like that. This is an unusual site. It's kind of a half of a lot that has been split off. Sorry, Daryl, maybe stand up and sit down. Thank you, though. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have really strong feelings one way or the other. It's a very unusual
Our
design
thinking
element,
there-
but it is going to be in the backyard. It's not going to be visible from the street. And if they can get a building permit for it, and if they're under on lot coverage, I don't know that it that I have an issue with it.
Yeah, it's always going to, my thing, if they have to get a building permit for it. And that's separate from ours, then I think that's your own thing to go fight that fight, so.
Yeah, I agree.
My stuff's not
So-
downloading, so I can't.
Yeah, I was gonna say mine is very slowly queuing, so it's hard to see all the images, but it sounds like we, as a commission, are generally okay with items 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I mean, all contingent upon her being able to get it permitted, but that's beyond our.
Yeah, that'll come back if it can.
Okay.
Make a motion for this.
Okay, let me, do we have any members of the public that wish to speak on this item? Okay. Okay, commissioners, do we have a motion on any of these items?
I will make a motion for items 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7 on HPCA 2400067.
Oh, sorry. You all have a recommendation to continue. We are missing a number of construction materials, product specifications. So if we could just include condition that all necessary building materials and specifications be submitted to staff.
Yes, please get those submitted to staff for approval. Yeah, that's my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov. Okay, so we have an approval on numbers 1, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So we have.
Okay, so we have 2, 3, and 8 remaining, which applicant has said you're okay with continuance. You
Yes,
just
sir. So
wanted
I'd
some-
like to just give my brief, summation and hear some feedback, and then we can continue those items. So first of all, the front porch. On the Sanborn maps in your packet, you can see that the original house up through 1955 did have a corner porch that this open gable actually faced onto Walker. I believe it's Walker. I have so many of these right now. But so our goal, and at some time that was infilled, and I would guess by this wainscoting below those windows on that corner, it was done around the 60s. Sometime in the 60s and 70s. So they enclosed that porch, dramatically changing the way that historic structure originally functioned. So I guess our real goal, and they also reoriented the house where it did face onto Walker. They reoriented the door to face onto 21st, okay? So that reconfiguration, I found many guidelines supporting, restoring back to a historic structure. This is, although I couldn't find a picture, this is not a grand home. This is not something that is in the archives at the city library. But even the county assessor sheet shows that as a separate addition at some time. So I believe that while we can't rehabilitate it back to that without destroying some of the historic fabric that remains, what I'd like to do, and what the homeowner would like to do, is restore, just mimic this side gable that faces Walker to 21st with a new roof and porch, roughly about the same size as the porch that's there, but then come in with the same details that we see on the main house to kind of elevate the historic nature of this home. We feel that that would be more in keeping with the original design of the home, having that corner porch, as well as incorporating the historic fabric that's there on the home, rather than it looking like you're walking into the side of the house, even though it faces the street. It's just kind of a unique situation. As Katie mentioned, this is a unique site with 2 houses on what's typically a single family lot. I knew this would be a push. I told the homeowner that from the start. But we both feel like this would greatly contribute to the neighborhood, and that there's a good case that it's closer to the original corner porch than what we see today. Moving on, and then I'll let you guys talk, I swear. Number 3, The side porch, again, this is more to do with the fact that that existing carport's going away, and while this is not a parking space or a carport, this side porch would allow for a better function for the homeowner. Since the backyard is almost non-existent, this would be a place for them to have like outdoor dining space, have, you know, their grill, and be able to create an entry point from the driveway. Again, I realize this is seen from the front of the home. I think there's certainly things we can do to reduce its visibility with some feedback from you all. And finally, the chimney. Again, this is a modest home. It's a modest home. It always has been. Knowing that it doesn't historically have a chimney, the homeowner did ask me to include that in this package. I would hope that since it's on the interior side, both the chimney and that side porch, and that they're not fully visible from the street, that maybe there would be some unique circumstance. You know, I understand both ways, but most typically we do see brick chimneys in the district. So I feel like with the addition of the brick columns, with these porches and the new chimney, that we could kind of elevate the historic nature of this home. And I'd be happy to hear your feedback on any of those items.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions on?
I would defer to staff's thoughts for now at this point.
Yeah, Katie, I'm specifically interested in staff's thoughts on the chimney. I agree that it enhances the look of the house and does tie in better with a lot of the brick chimneys that you see in the neighborhood. But is staff's issue with it, is that like it's so permanent it would be a harder thing to undo?
Yeah, it's just that it's, chimneys are architectural features that are historic, that are part of a historic structure that, just like any other kind of architectural feature, we would always say if it wasn't there historically, then it's not appropriate to add it where it didn't exist. I don't know if there are interior features that would suggest that there was a chimney in some location, if there's a fireplace in the house or something else that would have.
And it's a masonry fireplace, very typical of the era, very craftsman bungalow on the interior. But
where that chimney is?
Yes, just right.
Okay.
There's a true fireplace here, but instead of a chimney, a standard chimney in which we would hide the ugly flue, now this is just an exposed flue. And I would say that's very atypical for the neighborhood. However, it has occurred this way. But we would, again, just like to tie in better with the neighborhood.
And that fireplace is on the exterior wall, is what I'm seeing?
Correct. And this chimney, it doesn't need to bump out much at all. You know, it's really just to hide that flue. In fact, the thickest part of it is above the roof. So on this wall, the bump out is very minor, as you can see in the elevation.
The windows that are there on the side are pretty typical of windows that you usually see to either side of a chimney.
Correct.
I think if there are some other items here that we're going to continue, I think maybe this is one that could be continued and we get a little more documentation of the interior conditions.
Sure.
Maybe we look a little bit at size proportion of chimneys on similar structures and make sure that this one isn't getting any larger than it needs to. But I think there may be some justification there for a chimney in this location.
Yeah, it's a very simple design of a chimney. I mean, typically we see a lot of brick detailing, maybe these rows of soldier coursing and or roll lock. Here, we're just keeping it very simple with a modest little design at the top, but just keeping it very, very simple. But yeah, restoring it to what we believe was more the historic condition, had it been able to be afforded by the original homeowners.
So Holly, so on that corner right there is where
Yes.
you're talking about
Yes,
putting
sir.
some sort of a side porch or something?
That's right.
I was trying to find it in here, but couldn't. So
Yeah,
is that going to go right up to the property line of
No,
the
sir.
drive?
No, sir. So here's that chimney. Oh, sorry. Between the two windows shown there,
Yeah.
and this is a French door that would replace those double windows there. So that right about the start of those two windows is where it starts. And I have dimensioned that on the site plan. If I can get there real quick, I'll tell you. It's 16 feet from the, removed from the front corner, the side porches.
Okay,
It's-
from the front.
Yes,
And
it's,
then does it go up, where it goes up to the property line, is that, so is there a driveway back there still?
no, so the driveway will end at this new side porch.
And then that's, okay.
Yeah, and then, of course, the back carport that is non-original and not desirable is gone. So we would see this as kind of a switch for a more historic condition. The carport is functional, but it is not attractive and non-original. So maybe replacing that square footage with something we feel is a little bit more historically accurate could work here with the commission's agreement, I guess.
I just want to make sure I understand there's no documentation that there was a side porch there ever.
Right, right.
So do you consider that an addition or an architectural feature like a fireplace would be, or a chimney would be?
So the guidelines talk about alterations that are permanently attached to the house, like a porch, like a back deck that is tied in and is a, not just a little wood deck sitting on the ground.
Sure.
That those should be reviewed as if they were an addition. We don't look at them for square footage because it's not enclosed space.
Right.
But as far as compatibility and whether it's appropriate or not, visibility from the street, all those kinds of things, we treat those the same as we would in addition to the house.
Right.
So yeah, generally speaking, we would say adding a substantial, covered porch on the side of the house, modifying, converting windows to doors on the side of the house, in a visible location like this is not something that the guidelines would support.
Thank you.
On the front porch, I agree. There appears to be evidence that there was historically a front porch at that corner. I agree with Holly. I think it was probably enclosed at some point, and that's what you're seeing with that stonework and that little bump out, that was likely open at one time. I think staff would rather see the existing roof form retained and a new porch design that works with the existing kind of cross gable situation that you have there, not introducing a new roof form, because that does appear historic. It does appear to match the rest of the roof on the structure, and that space was just filled in. I could be wrong on that, but
I think you're exactly right.
so I think
And one, just real quick, Commissioner, I don't want to take any more of your time, but on page 8 of the staff report, 3.1.27, it says, if replication of original elements is not possible because lack of historic, physical, photographic, or documentary evidence, then a new design that is compatible with the original form, style, and period of the building shall be used. That is clear support for what we're talking about. Now, I know it's the front and it's sacred, but knowing that we have guidelines that support it, I would really hope that this is something that we can get behind. I know we're not going to make a decision on this today, but I'd just love to hear, how we're leaning.
I think that what I would recommend is continue to work with staff on these items. If you can get them as comfortable as possible so that when you come back, hopefully you have their support. It makes it easier for us. If not, if you want to come back without and present something that you're not able to get staff on board, come back with unique circumstances and arguments as to why
Very
that's
well.
necessary. So that would be my recommendation today.
And is that the feeling, majority, how we feel today? All right, then we're ready for a continuance vote. Thank you, Commissioner.
Yep, thank you.
I'll just note, we've had a couple of cases, numerous cases, where porches have been enclosed or had been removed, and we've been able to get a CA issued to reconstruct or to reopen that front porch. I think we can get there with this house.
Right.
I think it makes a lot of sense. It's just going to be working through some of the design details.
I completely agree. Thank you so much, guys.
Hey, Commissioners,
Have
do
a
we have
happy
a
holiday.
motion to continue?
Yes, I'll make a motion to continue items 2, 3, 8. You want it to which meeting, Holly?
Let's do September for this one.
September
Just
meeting.
this is a bigger.
Yeah.
This is going to
Yep,
take a little bit
September
more
meeting.
time.
Is that the 4th? Okay. There's been a motion to continue
Or 4th.
to September 4th.
2,
And what
3,
num-
and 8.
Yeah, thank you, 2, 3, and 8. We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We've got a second. Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
thanks again for your time, and let freedom ring.
Thank you. Okay, I think that concludes items for individual consideration. Under other business, I believe we just have one item, because we're not hearing
Correct.
B today, correct? Okay, so we've got BOA-15695 at 320 Northwest 21st Street.
And I just realized, I'm very sorry if people were here to discuss the SPUD, but they withdrew, or they didn't withdraw, but they asked for it to be deferred to next month's meeting, and I completely forgot to announce that at the beginning of the meeting. So if you all were sitting here waiting to discuss that item, they're not going to be here today to discuss it. I'm so sorry. But I hope you had a lovely time learning about the Historic Preservation Commission. I'm so sorry, guys.
Can we validate their parking?
Yes, we can validate your parking. I'll buy you a coffee. I'm very sorry, guys. Please, if you have comments, concerns, questions about the SPUD, it will be coming back to us. Please reach out to me and let me know if you want to discuss it or you have anything that you want to be, passed along to the applicant or to the commission about the case. Yes. Correct. The applicant requested that it be deferred to the August 7th meeting. Yep. Sure.
Okay. Katie, thank you.
Yes. Oh, I'm so sorry. So our last item is that BOA 15695 at 320 Northwest 21st Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6, by Melissa Graham, to acquire a recommendation to the Board of Adjustment regarding an application for a special exception to allow home sharing. This is a renewal of a previously approved home share special exception. This is a home in one of our HP districts that does require the applicant to be the home share to be the primary residence of the applicant and that the applicant be on site at time of rental. The applicant has indicated that they intend to comply with those requirements, and staff has recommended a recommendation of approval.
So I assume you're the applicant.
Melissa Graham, 320 Northwest 21st.
I didn't have to ask. You knew what to do. I love that.
I'm learning a lot.
Unless there's anybody in opposition, I'm happy to make a motion to recommend approval with the conditions listed in the staff report for BOA 15695.
Okay, we've got a second for recommendation approval.
Ready to start the holiday.
Commissioners, please vote in PrimeGov.
Thank you.
Okay, I believe we have a commission member that is going to be stepping away.
I would love to.
We're going to lose quorum, so
I can stay if I need to.
I think
I'll stay
Do I
as
need
long
to go
as I
through?
need to.
Communications and reports.
I'll just real quickly, I have nothing to report under administrative approvals. Feel free
Withdrawals?
to reach out with questions. No withdrawals, no administrative closings. Nothing to report from City Council. Board of Adjustment did hear the re-appeal of the window revision case and denied that appeal. So that one is concluded. Planning Commission heard the accessory dwelling ordinance. That's been continued to July 25th. Please reach out to staff if you have questions about that and about being more involved in that discussion going forward, and we'll keep you updated on that as it goes along.
Okay, Rita, anything from your office? Okay, our next meeting, where's my literature? I'm all over the place.
Well, I know we had multiple nominations for the open seats, so should we let the mayor know that now we have 2 open seats?
Yes.
Okay, our next meeting, the next regularly scheduled meeting for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, August 7th, 2024 at 2 p.m. at the Municipal Building, City Council Chamber. New applications for this meeting were received July 2nd, 2024. New information on projects continue from today's meeting to the upcoming meeting must be submitted to staff by 4 p.m. Tuesday, July 9th. The next regularly scheduled workshop for the Historic Preservation Commission is Wednesday, September 11th, 2024 from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. in the Embark Large Conference Room, Suite B at 431 West Main Street. Any items from commissioners? No. Any citizens to be heard? Then we will adjourn at 4:44. Thank you.
Pretty good.